Conversations. We've got a couple of us here today, and we're going to talk about something that's quite an important topic for us as cadet trainers. We're going to talk about interpersonal behavior. Right? There's a lot of us that we've got about 200 trainers right now that are onboarded and traveling to various camps. We're on track to do. We've done 300 plus camps in the entire cadet history, and we're only on track to do many more and get more trainers on board. I think an important aspect to talk about is we travel together, we train together, and sometimes after camps we also end up going on short trips together. Right? We're virtually a family, are we not?
Are we?
More than a family, we try to be a professionals, but
I think we do feel like a family.
Okay.
We do feel like it. We are supportive. We're there for each other. You just want the best out of someone. But to call it as a family also has a lot of cons attached to it. That that there'll be somebody who's authoritative. We have someone who's authoritative. There's somebody who there are a lot of expectations with respect to family. So do we have the attributes of a family? All the pros, yes. But do we call it as a family is still a question.
But why not?
define family.
So when you label it as a family, it comes, like Leena mentioned, comes with a lot of expectations. So in my opinion, I consider them as all my co-trainers.
Okay.
Or my colleagues, someone whom I have met maybe for the first time or the 10th time, no matter what. If I'm meeting anyone for the 10th time or first time, I'm treating everyone the same. I'm equally friendly with her, with him, whoever it is. I'm equally, my behavior is equal in front of them. But for me, they're all just co-trainers. If I label them as family, then it comes with a lot of other expectations that we come up with.
Interesting. Okay.
The dynamics.
The dynamics change.
Yes. I don't want to be an elder sister here to people, and I don't want to be protective. And even if I'm coming from a good heart of being protective, the other person might not feel protected. The other person might feel violated. So
Fair enough. Is this coming from a place where we're talking only about trainers who are senior by age, where we're saying, hey, you don't act like an elder sister to me, don't be a mother or a father to me, I've already got people back at home? Or is this something that you've seen across ages as well?
Yeah, I think the way I look at just volunteering on these weekends is I see it, and somebody who I feel like who has been in the corporate environment my entire professional career, I feel like I have carry myself with those same qualities even when I'm training. It's a little bit of like in the middle of, okay, it's not exactly like a full-time paying job, but at the same time I'm here to, in a professional capacity, I'm here for a particular mission, and I have to carry myself professionally through all of it, right? But that doesn't mean I don't have the same qualities of a family would, like supporting each other or like helping someone out or giving feedback that can help that person along their journey, even if I don't see them ever again, right? Things like that. And I think the age aspect to it is the same thing of how I would treat it in like a workspace, right? If there is someone way older than me who's my manager, or I don't think age is such a big factor when everybody is aligned to a common mission. Okay. The fact is the best experience for the cadets need to come out, right? And these things are part of the delegation, but I don't think it should play such a big role as it might manifest to me.
You mentioned some of the attributes in a professional setup. Do you have some examples of these?
Yeah. So we basically drive all of our conversations. Firstly, we understand what the context of each interaction is going to be. Okay. Right. And I think that is set up right from the start. Right from our calls, right from CTOP, right from our pre-briefing, from our one-on-ones. We know exactly what we're there to do, right? And the interaction has to be professional. Like, do I know the content as well as I should to go to this camp, right? And I need to approach that first. And I think that's the first checkbox I need to get out of the way. Secondly, my personal interactions with the trainers while I'm traveling or post-camp where I'm planning a short trip with them, it needs to be on that same regard. Like, have I delivered professionally first? Am I carrying myself professionally? And I think professionalism needs to be unpacked a little bit for everyone. So we can get into that a little bit more, but I think that's how I view this whole.
Okay, let's start by asking this question, right? All of us have gone to at least 3 or 4 camps. Some of us many more. Let's start by asking, as a cadet trainer, when am I Raj, and when am I identified as a cadet trainer? Where do we start being a cadet trainer when we go for a training, and where does it stop? We can go around the room, and we'll start with Harleen. So when does it start and when does it end?
So I think the moment you arrive at the campsite, it starts. You are a cadet trainer now. The moment, no matter you arrive in the morning at 10 a.m. or you arrive in the evening at 5 p.m. Depending on what time you arrive. So once you're at the location, you are a cadet trainer. Up to Sunday evening until you finish your debrief and everything and you're exiting the campsite. Until then, I believe you're, for those 48, 50 hours, you are a proper cadet trainer and you're expected to behave in a certain manner. You cannot be your, your casual way and, move around, do anything that you want. There are certain expectations that you have to maintain over there.
So anyone else has a different time frame?
Yeah, whenever you are being assigned to a camp, from that itself, as a trainer, your work has started. Whenever a TL or putting a message, you should respond to it. As a TL, you should schedule the team discussions and everything, and all the team members should have their responsibility to do so, and everything travel plans. From there till you are putting your review in the feedback form, as a trainer, you have to do your job. So that's how my time frame is.
So I think you're talking about open line of communication from the time you're assigned. Why is that important? How many of you have been team leads here? Most of them, except Anshuman. Okay, that's all right. But why is an open line of communication that important that you have to bring it up as part of interpersonal behavior?
So it's kind of a respect that we show because we are volunteering to the organization. Organization are expecting us to behave in such a way that you should show respect. For example, a TL is posting or something, you should have the respect, and you are already volunteered to it. Now you put it as a response message. That's your job is to do because you volunteered for it. That's how I see it. Other
makes the job easier, quicker. We're there to get the training done successfully. And if I want to know what time you are landing, what time you want to leave, and all that logistics, and if I have to get back to you again and again, it's a little tiring for me. So, if that is expected from the other person to communicate, just makes the work easier.
Okay.
So I think rightly put up by both of them. TL is doing the job of a trainer as well as taken up extra responsibilities. So he or she has volunteered to take up extra responsibilities. So it makes the job easier that like Lena said, when you're constantly putting up messages or asking something, the group is found for a reason. Otherwise, you would have just messaged everyone personally. The group is there for a reason. Why not utilize it? Utilize it in a right manner. Do your job, get your job done, and when the TL has taken up extra responsibility, respect that.
Okay.
That's what I feel.
Open line of communication is something that's critical, not just for the team lead who's expecting the kind of response from 9 other people, but also for the others, because all of our time is invested in this. Talking about time, is punctuality something? I think punctuality is something that's quite important. Not just in the camp where we start on time and end on time, but even in the pre-camp briefing. Right? We have 1 or 2 sessions that happen online. It's important for us to be on time to those sessions and also end on time. As a team lead, I need to have a responsibility to end on time, and that starts there. It follows on into the training, and it also goes into the debrief sessions that happen on day 1 and day 2, irrespective of whether we're traveling during the debrief, whether we get to stay there. And if some trainers are traveling during that time, how do we get the others in there to do this? Right? So punctuality, I think, is quite important for us to think about when we're on a camp during training. What else during training? Have you come across any uncomfortable situations that you have faced when you were in a training, in a camp, or traveling to or from a camp?
I think again starting back from the conversation where he started about are we a family or what is family, correct? So I come from a very professional background. Like I work in a law firm where things are pretty professional, because if we are not professional, then we're going to lose cases, which is a very big thing. So in a professional setup where I interact with my colleagues or the way I interact with people will be very different from how I interact in a family. Example, anyone who's in the room would have the same opinion of Balaji that Balaji never smiles. Okay, that's kind of the seriousness I bring to a room, be it a workplace, office, or wherever I go in the cadet. That kind of gives me that kick that okay, people take me as for someone serious. He is serious in what he does. But in a family setup, you ask my close friends, and if you see, they won't have the same opinion. They'll be like, he's the most joker person you'll ever meet because he cracked jokes. So I think in terms of me being in a very professional setup, Balaji is very different. Me, when I interact with my closest friends and my family, that is very different. I cannot be that Balaji in a professional setup. And I think Cadet is also a professional setup. So till date, I have colleagues who are married. I have my boss who is married. He has a kid. I don't know if my colleague or my boss is trying to have a baby or not. But here in Cadet, in terms of when people speak about, I've heard people talking about, hey, she or he is trying to have a baby and they're married. That's an information which is not necessary for me. Okay? That's the kind of uncomfortable conversations people have in Cadet. I think that has to stop. If you're in a professional setup, I don't think you'll have that conversation about. I'm just saying, giving you an example of what conversations look like in a professional and a family setup. Probably in a family, I don't know. I still think it's not okay for someone to ask whether you're trying for a baby or not. But I think in a professional setup, if you're coming to Cadet or you're in an office, you're working somewhere, these kind of conversations in a camp setup or a setup where you think it is a formal setup, I think is really bad and it's really uncomfortable. Just my personal opinion.
You talk about boundaries, right? What other kind of boundaries do you think? So we're all so close to each other, just in terms of physical proximity. All of us are traveling together, staying together, which we otherwise wouldn't. Maybe I don't share a room, but here I'm expected to share a room with 4 people. 10 years after my NCC days, for some of us it's 2-3 years, and for some of us it's maybe 30, 40, 50 years after after our last NCC camp. And what kind of uncomfortable situations do you think proximity brings in?
I would just start here. So Leena was sitting right next to me. I didn't realize that I had my hand on. I was just simply sitting here. Leena pointed, hey, can you just take the hand off? Okay. So this is something which I realized, okay, I didn't realize Leena was sitting next to me, but my hand was here. So she asked me to take off, I took it. So Leena had some uncomfortableness where she pointed out, hey, you have to take your hand out. So I think if Leena didn't point out, I would not notice. I never realized Leena was sitting there. So unless until I don't know if I did it in a very deliberate way or if not in a deliberate way, only I'll know. But only if someone points it out to say, then you can actually know that, okay, this is something which is wrong. Or someone outside of the room, they point out that this is wrong, then people will realize it's wrong. But the problem is, a lot of them still think this is okay. But whether this is okay or not, then it depends on who's sitting next to me.
Right.
So,
I think, I just want to bring light to why there are these uncomfortable situations in the first place, right? If you look at the way this organization is set up, we're spread across so many different ages, different geographies, different conditioning, and we're all lumped together. And so often people are just meeting each other for the first time on a weekend and are expected to be part of the organization. We're still united by all of that. So we're forced to be a certain way, which might not actually be in line with what we're comfortable with. Which is why that I think that disharmony within yourself and the organization can manifest in these uncomfortable situations in the first place. Right? I think people should just be cognizant that another person is not coming from the same place as you are. Right? And what if you enjoy hugging your friends and you're seeing them after a very long time at a camp, it might be perceived very differently from somebody who's coming for the first time. It's my first camp. I'm a part of the cadet training. I want to be a part of the team, but maybe I'm not comfortable with hugging someone for the first time.
Do I need to hug someone to be part of the team?
Right. Exactly. So I think people should just be a little bit more cognizant of that when they're meeting each other for the first time or in a pre-briefing call, the debriefing, everything. All of these things are under professional contexts. Right? And it should never be second to your job. Right? It's a personal commitment. And you should treat every commitment the same way. So that's how I look at why these uncomfortable situations come up. Right? Hari?
Yeah, on the downside, I have also have the same experience where one trainer is coming from a different environment and they suddenly use me a word creep towards me. So they went and said, oh, don't be a creep. Okay, they were mentioning that hurted me a lot, and I put it in the feedback as well, and I went to that person and conveyed it to that person. Also felt very bad because they forgot that I am from a different background and I took it personally. So these are all the things are also there when you are mentioning anything. You should be aware that that person is also from different thing. They may also get it in a different way as well. So,
communicating when you're uncomfortable like he did. Otherwise, you would have kept it inside his heart. I don't want to do a camp with that person. That person is a person who disrespects me and all that. So, very wise of you to say that, I come from a different place, they come from a different place, and I'm not okay with that. Maybe you are, but just don't do that to me. Just clearing that line, I'm not okay with it, don't do that with me. Just because you did it doesn't mean you're a wrong person.
I think that comes with the people pleasing behavior. That's when people pull themselves behind. Oh, if I tell this XYZ person that you behaved in a certain way and I didn't like it, you don't know how they are going to react, and that comes with the people pleasing behavior, which we should not be doing in a camp. If you're uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable. That's your boundary. Everyone has a different perception of being uncomfortable. If you may like hugging, he may not like it, and I'm meeting you for a lot. I'm meeting you for the 10th time, but he's seeing it for the first time. Why are they hugging each other's soul? In an open space, there are trainees, there are officers who are observing this. So we don't know how people are perceiving it. So it's better to always avoid all these situations. We don't do it in our workspaces. We don't. None of us do it in our workspaces. So when we are avoiding it, that this is another extended workspace, which you should say. So when we are avoiding it, that it's best to avoid here. You have volunteered here. Nobody has forced you to be a part of this. So
let's linger on that. Harleen mentioned that we were talking about people looking at us, right? Officers are looking at us, cadets looking at us. What kind of a perspective are we giving them? With something as simple as shaking our hands, giving a hug to another trainer, calling another trainer by their name, calling another trainer by their, I don't know, a slang that we would have in our region, swearing at another trainer, albeit casually. How do you think something like this is perceived?
Very unprofessionally, right? I mean, if I'm calling you by a slang, we might have an agreement. I might have a nickname for you, but they wouldn't know that, or the officers would not know that, and we're representing an organization here. So I don't think that would be a good remark on us. So that about slang, about hugging also, again, like how we talking about hugging, there are different types of hugs as well. Right? There's a side hug, there's a professional hug, there's a hug. So yeah, so it may be perceived as people who are not very serious with what they do, people who are very lenient, who wouldn't want that image to be.
It's also coupled with the fact that a lot of times the camps you go, the kind of I'm not saying the kind of content or the kind of values we try to inculcate in the cadets doesn't sit well with a lot of officers. A lot of times they cannot complain about your content, so they kind of pick out these small quirks or these small behaviors from you, which kind of doesn't go well when someone speaks about it. On a normal day, someone might not notice it, but someone who wants to find fault with you, or someone who's trying to do something to you, will easily say, hey, these cadet trainers come, they stay in the same room. A simple gimmick like that will put 2 days of your hard work down the drain. So I think for that, we need to be a little careful as to what we do when we are in a campsite and how we portray it, because whatever we do are reflecting, which also reflects the 2 days training which you're trying to inculcate. So if you preach when you preach something to the cadets, but as a person you're completely different, I don't think it sits well with what we try to do.
in that, adding to that, so when you are a trainer, you are instructed and the organization is expecting you such a way that you won't judge anyone. But if you go to a camp, there are different set of people who are observing you. From the cadets, from the driver who is dropping you, from the hotel person who is accommodating you, from the mess people, everyone are observing you, and everyone have certain kind of impression about you. And I will give you one scenario where we were in a camp and we were staying 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers away from the campsite, and it's a nice hotel where we were discussing, and it's a day zero brief, and we did it and came back. On the next day, we are having one chat with group commander, and the group commander said, I was also staying in that same hotel and I was observing you on the same day. That we don't. So imagine we take it as a granted, since we are 5 kilometers outside of the campsite. we can do whatever we want, like as people said, in a casual behavior. So that would be unprofessional to him, and that person might have different impression about ourselves. So we never know when people are observing or getting an impression on them.
Yeah, in today's day and age, with the amount of cameras that are around us, we ought to be careful. And I think it's important for us to not just behave in the right manner during the 2 days of training, but also on a more personal level throughout. Because hey, if you're doing something right, then you don't need to change it only for those 2 days where you're representing yourself as a cadet trainer. If you're forcing yourself or your behavior to change for those 2 days, then maybe I need to take a closer look at who I am. But let's move on to another question on a tangent. We've got some trainers who are couples, right? We've got some trainers who are married couples, and we have some trainers who maybe unmarried couples. Do you think it is okay for a couple to travel to camp? Yes or no, and why? We'll start off with Anshuman and we'll move this way.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any issue with a couple traveling as part of a delegation as a trainer for whatever the training might be, because like we should all understand why we're doing this in the first place, right? We have the mission of trying to get better jobs faster for cadets. Right? That's the primary goal. And as long as we're able to do it with professionalism and we're able to do justice to the training and to our organization, I think that should be the only criteria with which why you should shortlist certain people and things like that, right? But having said that, if a couple does come, you are part of a wider team, right? And you're there in a professional setting, and it's important for them to treat each of it professionally, right? Whether you're in a campsite or not, and especially more in a campsite because you're under scrutiny all the time, right? But as long as you're able to maintain professional boundaries and you're not making others uncomfortable with, and of course there is that urge to be a lot more, loving to your partner while you are at camp or
Away from home.
Away from home, exactly. But I think while you're in the context of the setting, context of the training, I think it's important to just maintain boundaries, not make sure that you're there, and you should understand the underlying why, right? You're there for a commitment, and then just stick to that commitment, and then you're free to do whatever you want after the training.
Yeah. At this point, I think that applies to, it doesn't matter if you're a couple or not, you just have to behave in a particular manner. So let me rephrase this question a little bit. Where does it cross the line? We were talking about couples traveling together. Where does it cross the line? It doesn't necessarily have to be couples now, but any two trainers. Where does it cross the line where it's now uncomfortable for other trainers? Let's take an example of a debrief after day one. We're all sitting together in a conference room, in a room, hotel room. What kind of behavior crosses the line?
Think usually we are in a room, hotel room,
Right.
put up there, usually all of us. And when we are having a briefing or debrief session, we are quite close to each other because it's a compact room. So, you make sure that you're sitting in a professionally way. I'm not saying you sit saudhan and all that. Yeah. But just sit you be comfortable. You don't have to hold someone's hand, lie on someone's lap, or do all such kind of things that makes the trainer uncomfortable, the one who's sitting, and the others also uncomfortable. It's a very unusual situation that happens, but there have been scenarios where this happens. So I think all these, and you may be best of best friends. That's okay, but maintain that during the 48 hours, 50 hours, like we discussed, where we started from. So maintain that boundary. Don't do it, like higher having cuss words, swearing on someone. Maybe like you mentioned, we may have a pet name for each other, but you don't have to bring it up in a debrief or a briefing session. It's not required. Nobody wants to know that. So you just be very professional, behave normally, behave casually. Just maintain that kind of discipline that you bring up in an NCC camp when you were a cadet. Bring it up, same thing.
But I have a question. So imagine that some two trainers are behaving in a such a way that is too unprofessional. So what should I do now? I'm observing this. Should I point it out at that point itself, or should I raise that concern to team lead or to the CTO? What should I do?
If you go by the handbook, it says go to the team lead, talk to him about it. But if you're comfortable addressing the situation which is there, you can address the situation then and there. If you're not someone who's comfortable addressing the situation yourself, first line of defense, would I call it, first line of arsenal is the team lead, and team lead decides. If you think the team lead is not doing a good job or it's not good, then you can probably report it to CTO and then take it forward from there. And still, if you feel that it's not something which is appropriate in terms of Cadet and everything, you still have an email ID to which you can write to say that this is not something which is acceptable. So you have these lines of from going by the handbook, but I don't know how many of us have read the
But
handbook. So
now I am saying I am one person in that group, in that team. You are the team lead. I am saying that these two people are not behaving in such a way that according to the handbook, it is not right. So what action?
let's break the ice. Tell me what's not according.
So imagine they both are male, but they are attending the session like this,
Okay.
holding hands on each other, and it is too unprofessional in that scenario.
If I was the team lead, probably I might give you a very biased view of it, but I'll just talk to the person and say, hey, we are in a meeting. I don't think it's appropriate for us to sit like this. Just imagine if someone else is watching us. Would it look good that we are doing a formal brief and pre-brief meeting, but in a very informal manner? But that doesn't mean that you could probably sit in your studies and put hands on it. So that doesn't work. So I think you should set the context there so that the same can be prevented in the future. That's from me.
Personally, I would say it. I would tell them directly, maybe at that point of time, if I can say it in a kind manner. If not, after the session, I would go and have a word with them about it with them. If I'm not comfortable to do that, I would then bring it up with the team lead and have the team lead address it. If the team lead doesn't address it, like Bala mentioned, we have CTO. We also have the email ID he was talking about was the ECC. So we can write to them as well to take a look into this. So that's personally something that I would do. Right.
I think there's another side to this conversation as well, right? Which is the line is so subjective based on what you are comfortable or uncomfortable with, right? You can be in a camp where you have no, and I personally have no problem if like somebody's holding hands, right? I don't have an issue. But if you are in that scenario where you are also a person who's okay with what you're seeing and don't think of it as an issue, what are you supposed to do in this scenario, right? Because you also need to take a step back and look at it from an organization perspective. 200 people are certified trainers. We're traveling to different locations. It's very tough to keep the training experience consistent and uniform everywhere. So you rather err on the side of caution and not do these things or not tolerate these things when you see it, even if you are personally okay with what it is.
Right. So as a third person, you're saying even if you observe something that may be inappropriate, bring it up. Even if you're not affected.
Or even if you're like, okay, everybody here I know knows me and Balaji are best friends, and so we can sit like this. But on another camp, with somebody else there, the scenario might be totally different. Somebody else might really find it extremely objectionable.
Absolutely. I think here we're talking about what kind of culture are we setting as well for someone that comes in as a new trainer in C.9. They come in and look at us as a new team. First time that they're coming in. What kind of behavior are we putting up? What are they seeing for the first time as a standard of the organization? Will that make them actually come back and be a part of the organization, or will they say, okay, one was just enough, that's a little too much, I don't want to be a part of this anymore, and then they walk away? That's something that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about all of this. I have one last question, after which I think we can close. I wanted to address the camp has ended now, right? We came in, we trained for 2 days, and all of us now want to go out for dinner, right? Who pays for it? First of all, does everyone want to go out for dinner?
I think
Simple stuff.
from my experience, what camps I have been, and if the camp food, people have complained about, like, as a team lead, I'm not talking as a trainer. As a team lead, if people have come up to me and say, the camp food is not good, I call when we're having, after the debriefing session, everything, I ask them, do you guys want to go at the campsite and eat, or do you guys want to go out? Whatever is the majority, we prefer that. And if anyone still doesn't want to come, you can go to the campsite, have your dinner, get it done. My job is done. You guys decide how you want to have
You
dinner.
think that would make that person, so in this group, let's say I do not want to come out, I maybe I can't afford a meal outside, but I don't want to, I'm already spending enough to come do this training. There's 5 of us sitting saying that, hey, okay, I want to go outside and eat. Do you think that's some kind of pressure on me saying, oh, you're the only one that's left out? So maybe you should come with us too.
Sometimes it is, again, it depends on the person. If someone is taking pressure, again, you cannot force them to do it. If people like me will not take pressure, I'm like, I am not coming if I don't want to come. If I want to come, I will come. So again, it's differs person to person how you take it up.
Not just with food. We were talking just before this. We started recording this about your experience in Guwahati. You want to talk about that a little bit? The temple.
Yeah. There are some cases where people are willing to go to temples as well. Pretty sure I'm not okay with it, but for one time it is fine. But if people are calling you for multiple times to the same place, even you're not okay with it, people try to come. But I'm okay if they are forcing matlab, okay, we are following ethics, we are going. But sometimes we are not okay with it, and people are forcing is not professional, I would say. How have you dealt with it? I said okay, we'll go. I don't want to hurt other feelings as well, and give them a good company.
I think that's where the problem starts. When you start accepting it, saying okay, I think I don't know. I'm very biased because I'm very people. I don't know. Not self. Even selfish is not the right word. You respect yourself enough, right, to say no to something. I think that has to come. That can come only when it comes within you. Someone like the organization here cannot tell you that you have self-respect, have self-respect. No. But if you are someone who's able to probably not care about what others think, what others might feel about your choice, I think that's the way it goes. But fortunately or unfortunately, not everyone is that way. So you have to take care, probably in a situation where Hari feels uncomfortable, or probably in a situation where someone feels uncomfortable. I think it's best to err on the side of caution to say, hey, let's just have dinner in the camp. I think problem ends there instead of me calling everyone and asking, hey, let's have dinner, what do you think about it? Probably someone might feel uncomfortable to tell that he doesn't have a job now or he doesn't have money now to come out for the dinner. So I don't want to put that someone in the spot on the spot. So I think that's the kind of thinking we need to have. And for me, unfortunately, I had that experience only after facing something like this. So I kind of now get where it all comes from. So I think we need to think a little probably broader terms in like how we address cadets, and whenever we go to a camp, we do GS or any module, we go with an open mindset to say, hey, because this is from this region, we'll expect the response. Now we kind of come with a very open setup. I think even in terms of interaction with trainers, I think we need to have this open setup to see that everyone feels included and not someone is excluded because of their status or because of their job or because of their caste, religion, or whatever you want to call it. But it's just that inclusivity people need to feel, and how we can do that is what I think we need to think about.
So we have a module which is how to say no.
Yeah.
Right? Use it.
Practice what you preach.
Practice,
Yeah.
exactly. And accept a no as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's also, I think, something that's critical. I mean, to sum it up, there's a lot of gray when it comes to the behavior that we're talking about here. But it's critical for us to identify where the line is, and when in doubt, ask. If still in doubt, look at the handbook. But if you're still confused, err on the side of caution, like the both of you mentioned. With that, thank you so much for being a part of this Cadet conversation, and looking forward to see you in a camp real soon. Thank you.
Thank you.